Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Fujan.
I really started to embrace them and really encourage them. I said, when you start to feel overwhelmed, take a step back, take a deep breath, and just let that moment roll off your back. Remember what you are, who you are, what you're doing, and then re-engage. And because sometimes, life can be so overwhelming for us. And it's almost like we get stuck. And I talk about a lot the psychology of the brain, the neurophysiology of it. It's incredible because our brains help us to formulate our response. But if we don't pre-program a response for any situation that we think we may be in, when we encounter that situation, it's almost like our brain starts spinning its wheels. It doesn't know what to do. And that's really the onset of what happens with these, with our post-traumatic incidences, is that the brain hasn't developed the necessary coping mechanisms.
Introducing a powerful new update from the Fujan app. Now with flexible subscription plans to fit your journey monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Our new AI-driven onboarding customizes your path to feeling better, faster, and enjoy a refreshed experience with stunning 3D interactive videos. Update now. Empower your inner voice with Fujan. Download today.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a Heartfelt Chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Fujan Zain. I'm a psychotherapist and author and the founder of the International Awareness Integration Institute. Today, I am talking with Dr. Howard T. Woodruff. He's a life coach who blends profound personal experience with decades of trauma, support, and spiritual leadership. Having overcome his own loss of his own father, his son, and major career challenges, he brings deep empathy and resilience to his work. An ordained pastor, certified trauma expert, and critical incident stress debriefer, he has supported fire, EMS, emergency room services, and state police agencies, served at the New York City 9/11 recovery side, and was recruited by India's president to aid communities after the 2004 tsunami. Dr. Woodruff is also a creator and patent process called Reclaimed Living that helps individuals identify and transform the roots of the pain, their pain, someone's pain, into growth and empowerment. His mission is to help people rise above trauma and move from victimhood to victory. I really enjoyed our conversation, and it actually went over our usual time because there was just a lot of personal conversations about experiences and the philosophy and the usefulness and what we do. And obviously, because he's also a pastor, there's conversations around spirituality, religion. How does that support the people's spirituality? How does that support them? And what are some of the ways that we could shift the meaning of life and the way we are? And we talked about, traumas as and sufferings that we endure during life, and then also at end of life phases. So it was a very, very deep conversation. I really enjoyed our conversation together, and I hope that you do as much as I do. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on my YouTube channel and connect with me through my website, whojanzain.com, or any of my social media platforms, and share your thoughts with me. I love, 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 love to hear from you. So without further ado, here's Dr. Howard T. Woodruff.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Fujan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Fujan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Fujan Zain, and Dr. Manoukian, three experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome, Dr. Howard T. Woodruff, to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be with you.
It's so nice to be with you. Tell us a little bit about you and what got you to live this beautiful, reclaimed life for yourself first, and then sharing it with others.
Oh, sure. It's been a long journey. It's been an arduous trek as well. It really began probably. I can date this all the way back to being in third grade, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do because I patterned my life after my father. He was my my hero. He was just a superhero in my life, and of all the things that he did, I think I truly appreciated the people who would come up to him and ask him for his opinion in situations that they were involved with. And I just thought that was so cool. And one of the occupations that he had, he was a volunteer firefighter. So I was pretty much born and raised in the firefighting network, and wanted to become a paramedic early on. And as I was a junior in high school, I started my training for that, started my EMT training. And one night, 1978, I was at the firehouse serving on the ambulance, and we got a call to my house. My father had a seizure. He ended up having brain cancer. He had brain surgery. And I was devastated. I was angry. I was mad. I really wasn't much of a person of faith at that time, but I said to God, if this is what you're about, I want nothing to do with you. And then through a series of great incidents in my life, as I look back on them now, they're great. But man, they were heartbreaking that I went through, and my life started to turn around, and I met my soon-to-be wife, and she saved me. I said if it weren't for her, I would be in jail today. And then started on. I became the youngest certified paramedic and in Pennsylvania, and that was neat. And then I became EMS director, and then I started consulting around the world for EMS development. Loved it. And then got a call to ministry, answered that call, and it was incredible because I see that really in my belief that God was really using me as an instrument to take my life, use it as an example, and say, look, the horrible things that we go through in life, they have a purpose, and if we wait them out, and if we just allow them to develop our lives, more clearly, it will be a beautiful life. And so I've focused on that. And oftentimes, we as pastors or as clinicians, it's easy for us to tell other people how to do things. But I go back to Easter of 2009. Our son, who was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, he died. And oh my goodness, was that tragic, for me. But, through the courses that I teach and stuff, I can see that it was part also of God's plan for my life and for his life. And it was a beautiful situation that transpired out of something that was totally horrible. And to this day now, I help other people deal with just the tragic events that they go through in life, whether it's the death of a loved one, or they lose a job, or they don't get the job they want, whatever it is. And I think if we could begin to, really start to process and prepare our lives for the events that come forward, we're going to be much better as those events unfold in our lives.
It's amazing. As you were sharing, I remembered, I've never been in, religious or I could say probably spiritual, but never religious or nor
Hmm.
any type of religion. Um, and I remember I've been abused as a child, and I remember for a long time, a lot of the work that I did in psychotherapy for myself, like when I went to psychotherapy, or a lot of the work that I did in different times.
Yes.
This concept of that, you know, and the more I got into it as a client, the more I got into why me? Why does it have to happen to me? Or why does it have to happen to anybody? Why does humanity, we look at the other
Right.
aspect of why is humanity that way?
Yes.
And these are conversations that I consistently see also with my clients. Same thing you said. You said, when even if I'm a believer, that when something happens, which I'm not expecting it, then I question the validity of all of it, or why is it happening, as if there's some sort of an expectation for us as human beings that suffering should not be there. And it was interesting because when I started looking, a little bit bigger than just me and the human race, and we look at the animals, and it's like in their world, not pets, but animals in actual wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Their expectation is that today I might go hungry, or I might die, I might get killed, or there isn't any type of the kind of an expectation that, as I get born, heaven should be upon me right here, and all should be going smooth. And anything that is not smooth, we become, angry at everybody, whether it's our parents or the world or human being or God or anyone, about why is it that I'm going through suffering?
Yes.
And I hear that you've gone through your own version of suffering, and at one point is trying to find some meaning out of the suffering, or putting it into some perspective. Or for me, it was more like at one point was, it's just part of it. It's just part of life. And for many years, I could look at the suffering and the abuse and all of those for myself and get stuck in it. Or I can also look at the great gratitude of all the other things that I also had, which I wouldn't be able to survive all the way to 64 if all of those other pieces were not there. And, the same humanity, the same, the species was also there to help me move forward. So I just wanted to share with you, as you were talking, all of this was coming up for me.
Oh my goodness, yes, and thank you, just for bringing that up. But you're right. Our response is a choice. We can choose how to respond, and unfortunately, I think culture and the world in which we live in, they want us to be pretty much. They want us to be victims of our lives rather than to be victors. And that's what I really stress, is there is nothing that can happen to us that can really deflate us or defeat us unless we allow it to.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I can't imagine, the pain and the difficulty you went through. And, certainly we never want to get together and say, well, there's a reason for that and there's a plan for that. It's like, oh, really? That may be a while down the road. But when I was doing my work with the first responders at 9/11, I really started to embrace them and really encourage them. I said, when you start to feel overwhelmed, take a step back, take a deep breath, and just let that moment roll off your back. Remember what you are, who you are, what you're doing, and then re-engage. And because sometimes, life can be so overwhelming for us. And it's almost like we get stuck. And I talk about a lot the psychology of the brain, the neurophysiology of it. It's incredible because our brains help us to formulate our response. But if we don't pre-program a response for any situation that we think we may be in, when we encounter that situation, it's almost like our brain starts spinning its wheels. It doesn't know what to do. And that's really the onset of what happens with these, with our post-traumatic incidences is that the brain hasn't developed the necessary coping mechanisms. Yeah, and so if we can teach people, and this is one of the hardest things that I walk through with my clients is, I say, okay, imagine the worst thing in the world that you think could happen to you, and we're going to work with that. How, if it happened today, how would you deal with it? And that was really born out of a realization with our son's death, because the military is so good at having their troops literally program their potential survivors. Before our son, he was in special forces, so he was really involved in a lot of things, but he would always say before he went on a deployment, we'd get together, we'd do the male thing and sit out on the porch and smoke cigar and have a glass of brandy and talk. And he'd say, "Listen, Dad, if things don't work out, if I don't come back, I believe, that we'll see each other again. Just take any organ that anybody else needs, take it from my body, give it to them, bury me, and move on with your life." And when that happened, the moment we walked into that ER and the trauma surgeon said, I mean, he didn't even say hello or how are you doing or I'm sorry. He just said, your son's brain dead. And it was like, wow, okay. All of a sudden, all of those things that my son said, this is what I want you to do, kicked in. And I was able then to process that moment and allow that moment, rather than to take advantage of me, I was able to take advantage of it and say, okay, yeah, this, pardon my language, but this is going to suck. But I know what I'm able to do. And I was able to gain control. And that I think is one of the biggest frustrating aspects for people is the loss of control in an emergency. I remember I went to, actually, I was called by the president of India following the tsunami. And he asked me to go over and help their country deal with what had happened. So the first, I touched down in India and was given a driver and a translator. And I said, I want to go to the scene. I need to see what's going on. Went down to the coast and there was one woman standing there. And we went and the translator was working with me and there was one lone palm tree. Everything else was gone. She said, I came down to the shore. My husband and son had gone out on the boat. My daughter and our family were back in the buildings back there. She said, the next thing I knew was a wave picked me up, put me on top, and she pointed to the top of the tree, put me on top of the tree, and I watched everyone die. And I thought, oh my goodness, what do we do with that? And, through talking with her and allowing her to, talk about, the event and to literally claim control of what happened, she was really able to process that in a way that I still have conversations with her to this day. And she's doing very well and has, lived through it and has a family again. But, that moment is still rich and very rare in her life, but just the preparation and the ability to claim, what's going on in your life is vital, I think, in our long-term survival.
And you brought this experience where you were working in emergency rooms and moving with whatever it was in front of you, which absolutely we feel powerless and we're out of control and everything is right there. And one of the things I'm hearing from you is that instead of shifting that into the powerlessness into hopelessness,
yes,
it's shifted into reclaiming. And your program is called Reclaimed Living, which is reclaiming and taking it and bringing it back into what is it that I'm in control of? What is it that, what meaning am I giving this? What is it that, how am I shifting this?
Yes.
And based on what you were saying, the same conversations, as you said, was, as I said at the beginning, was in the part of healing. Obviously, a lot of people who go through difficulties in life and they're powerless. And when we were talking about trauma, is because at that moment we absolutely experienced powerlessness and helplessness, and that's how we hold the trauma. And as the trauma is about us or is about losing someone, or the grief is there about losing someone because we don't have control over their life. And somehow, as we move along with these processes of powerlessness, then there's a allocation of some sort of meaning, whether the meaning is finding reasoning around it, something above ourselves, beyond ourselves, or beyond our ego, or beyond getting stuck in one layer, and how we move forward, claiming what's inside of our life. And
Yes.
how do you take that and bring it into the reclaimed living process?
Yes, basically, with everyone that I work with, I basically talk about the three P's, and those P's are the pain, the pivot, and the purpose. The pain that someone first encounters in whatever untoward situation occurs in their life, that unrolls in their life, that they're not prepared for, losing a child, or losing a job, or a friendship, whatever it is, that causes significant pain. And what we do is we talk about that. We have that person, like I said, claim that point and use it as a pivot point in their life, so that when they move through this event, they're not just going to get past it and hopefully put it behind them, but we're going to see how it's going to help them frame the rest of their life, and we're going to see the purpose that it brings, and that then opens up the avenue for me to help deal with. I wrote a program, a life review program that helps people to plot the important aspects of their life, the important moments that they've gone through, both positive and negative, put them on basically a one-dimensional scale. It was extremely satisfying to me, all the way down to it was extremely alienating or angering for me. We plot those out, and every person that we've dealt with, we've seen that those horrible moments that have been in their life have always led to positive outcomes further down the road. So if we can demonstrate the fact that your previous life, you've gone through problems and you've emerged from them bigger and better, well, then this problem too is one that's going to basically give way and bring some beauty to your life, but it's going to take time. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we have, is trying to help people understand that this is a time process. It's not just going to be over in a few days or a few weeks or months or even years, but while they're going through it, they don't need to feel as though they're stuck in that moment. They can take positive steps.
I've developed a psychology model called awareness integration, and part of that is
Yes.
obviously trauma informed. And one of the things you just said is also interestingly, because exactly we are resilient, we endure, we learn strategies of how to survive. And somehow, although we've survived that particular event, we don't necessarily bridge all of the skills that we acquired in doing that to other angles of our life or to other things. Although systematically, subconsciously we are, but I think consciously we don't associate how skillful we were in, and I always say, like, if we're alive, if you didn't turn psychotic because your brain just couldn't handle it, and if you're not numbing yourself specifically, then definitely you have, you've created some skill, and let's name this skill. Let's figure out what it is so we can move it
Right.
to areas of your life. Absolutely. There is also, so there's issues that happens in life, and there's also enduring and moving on. We come to the phase of end of life phases, let's say, or we're coming to age that people usually don't look necessarily to the future because the future is like death waiting for them.
Yes.
And it's a different way of looking at life, but because we're future-oriented human beings, so we're constantly looking at, okay, this is what it is. I'm going to give a meaning to my life, and this is what I'm going to do. But when we come to a certain age, and I know that that's also a group that you work with, and the same concept of reclaimed living comes for that particular demographic, which is I'm coming to a place where on a day-to-day, I'm not doing my work, or I'm not necessarily experiencing that I'm being effective or useful or moving forward. And obviously creates a lot of depression. And then an anxiety of unknown with death. Even some of the clients I've worked with, which are tired and they're like, I just wish I was dead. And then yet the minute they actually have to face death, anxiety shows up.
Yeah.
So we have the sadness, the grief of a life, exploring all of life and looking at, guilt, shame, the should have, should have, gratitude, all of those shows up. What are your suggestions? How do you, relay the concept of reclaimed living with this group?
That is such a phenomenal question, and it opens the door for another story that was just so foundational for me. Growing up, I had a grandmother and a grandfather who were just nasty, to be honest, to be downright honest. And we would always say, boy, if anyone, just pardon the language, if anyone's going to hell, it's grandma, And she was just miserable, angry, nasty. Well, I had gone into the ministry, and literally like 2 years later, she calls me up and she says, well, Howard, I guess God's got it in for me. I have pancreatic cancer. And I said, oh, grandma, I said, that's serious. I said, what if we would just start to work through a little bit of that, unbundle that? So I met with her just like a client, and it was incredible. She, told me all the things that she had done wrong in her life, and she had grown up as a Catholic, and that has a lot of baggage in and of itself. Just like any faith-based belief has. And we were able to say, look, and I told her, Grandma, it doesn't matter where you've been, it matters where you're going. Well, on her deathbed, I'm sitting with her in the nursing home, and she's got quite a bit of morphine on board. And I had called my sister, and I said, you probably want to come down. I think her time to die is soon. And all of a sudden, my grandmother, she had been unconscious. Her eyes had been closed. She sits bolt upright in bed, scared the daylights out of me. Her eyes are open, and she's looking around, and she says, oh, Howie, it's beautiful. And I said, what do you see, Grandma? And I literally was able to look into heaven through her eyes. She says, oh, there's Walter, who's her husband. There's Dick, who was a son who was killed in a car accident. And there's Carol. Well, Carol is my sister's name. And I thought, oh my gosh, has Carol been in an accident and she's dead now? And I said, do you see my sister? And she said, no. I see my daughter. And I remembered she had a stillborn baby. And I'm thinking, this is incredible. She recognizes her own daughter, after all this time. And then she looks over to the rain. She said, oh, here he comes. I said, who do you see? She said, here comes Jesus. And then she laid back and died. And so I share that with people just to say, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who we all study, go through that. Not a lot of people know that when she was on her deathbed, she repudiated all of that. She said, this is all BS, and I really try to get people to say, look, you've got to train for your death as well. This is going to be a beautiful experience for you. When you die, you're not going to know that you're dead, because you're going to be in a place where, where all your needs are met. You are experiencing the immense amount of love. You've got warmth. You've got security. This is what life was meant to be. and so, really try to get people to look at the positive side of what's going on, to reassure them that, what, their loved ones who are back here, people are going to care for them. They're not going to be left out in the cold as well. And again, it's just a way of getting them to be able to take control of the moment in which they're in. And so many people have had, such terrific experiences through that. And I've had families that have, just said, thank you for doing that, because that helped us as well. We were wondering. And so, yeah.
My uncle, they called me and said, come down to see your uncle. My uncle was in Iran. So I flew over, and they said, he looks like he's going, but he's like refusing it. Like his body wants to go. So I sat with him, and he looks at me, and he's absolutely atheist throughout his whole life. So he looks at me, he said, I've been an atheist all my life. I'm like, I know. It says, but I'm having experiences that I can't explain anything around them.
Oh my.
I said, Uncle, what are you experiencing? He says, look up there to the left. So, he's laying down on a bed, and he's like telling me to look up there to the left. And I look, well, obviously I'm just seeing the ceiling. And so I said, what do you see? Same thing. Like, he started sharing names of people who he really loved and that they had passed on. And I said, okay, and what's happening? He said, they're having a party, and they're telling me that I should join them. And, that they're telling me that they miss me and they want me there. And they're preparing all of this for my welcome. And I said, well, that sounds beautiful. And, how come you're not going? Because they're welcoming you. And he said, well, I'm just scared. I'm like, well, they're showing you how beautiful this is. What are you seeing?
Oh my.
And he says, I just want somebody to tell me I could go. I said, you can go. It's okay.
Good for you. Oh my goodness.
And I kissed him, and I flew back. And 3 days later, he passed on. And I've had this experience with different people as my clients, and people who really are trying to pass on and kind of like transfer.
Yes.
And the fear of transferring is there. And sometimes that's all they really know. Because, as human beings, we're trained to say, no, 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 don't go. You can't go. We miss you. We want you here.
Right.
And this kind of, it's like they need a permission from others around them. And then that permission allows them to give themselves the permission that it's okay. It's okay that if they want to transfer.
Yeah. Yeah. I say, and I need to explain this a little bit, but grief is the most selfish emotion that we have. Literally, it's like, I don't want you to die because I don't want to have to deal with that death. But if we reframe that and say, who among us would not want our loved ones or our best friends to, take a trip to Hawaii or Fiji or, and wherever they're going in heaven, it's going to be a lot better than that. And you hit the nail right on the head, I believe, is being able to say, look, you can go. We'll be all right back here. We'll miss you, yes, but this is your time right now in life. And it just changes the whole complexity of the death scene itself.
Yes. And I think definitely for people who are utilizing and, believing that belief of the warmth and the love and that really is supportive. And a lot of people,
yes,
definitely not religious, as they're getting older, they need something beyond themselves. And I think they usually grasp onto something out there that can really hold that kind of a love, the cushion of love for them, and pass through the fear, not only the fear that they've had through life, but also the fear of moving on from life.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that really is also supportive. What got you the calling of going into ministry?
Do you know? I don't know. I mean, for those people who are, somewhat biblically literate, I had a calling just like Isaiah had. I had a dream once, and this is how really thick I am. I was doing a job for a client down in Virginia Beach. We lived here in Pennsylvania. So I had to leave every week on Sunday afternoon to get down to Virginia Beach to do my job. And then I'd come back home on Friday night. Well, I loved the job I was doing, but I hated being away from my wife and my two kids. And literally, I would just bawl. Well, one night I was down in Virginia Beach, and I had this vision. I had this vision. I was in this room, and it was almost like a courtroom. I love cherry wood. I love, oh my goodness, cherry furniture, and I'm looking at the walls, and it's all cherry. It's got this ornate, uh, you know, decorations on it, and I see this fog on the floor, and all of a sudden, I feel my name called. I don't hear it. I feel it. And I just disregarded it. And I felt it again. And I turn around, and there is this bright, I'm getting goosebumps. There's this bright, shining object floating right in front of me. And all of a sudden, I realized, and I looked down, and the fog is not fog, but it's the robe of this apparition that's there. I mean, I can't see a face other than this beautiful. I say it's 10 times brighter than the sun, and it's beautiful to look at. But all of a sudden I realized I was in deep shit, deep trouble. Um, and I put my head down.
Whatever you
What's
want.
that?
So we're
Okay. Thank you. Um, and and this being said to me, "Why won't you look at me?" And I said, "Because you're God, and I am a horrible person, and I have lived a horrible life." And literally, it's the oddest experience, but I'm still looking down, and I can sense this one thing up beside this bright sun, which is of course God, just leaves and just blows right, and it went right through me. And I heard God say, I've made you clean. I want you to do my work.
Mhm.
I woke up, and as God is my witness, I said, I'm not eating pepperoni pizza before I go to bed again. But then it took me, a good 6 months to process it. And I happened to go to church one day and said to my pastor, something happened to me, and I've got to talk to you. So I told him the story. He opened to Isaiah 6, gives me the Bible. I read it. It is verbatim what Isaiah experienced on his call. And I dropped the Bible on the floor, and I said, "Oh, Pastor Ed, I am not worthy to do this." I'm thinking, okay, now he's going to pat me on the back and say, "Well, of course you are. God called you." And he said, "You're right. You're not worthy." He said, "That's not the question. The question is, are you willing?" And I thought, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, I did a life review, and it's like, that's all the stuff that I went for is now to tell people there's hope. There's a plan. There is another life out there after the horrible things that other people do to you, and you can rise above them. And that was my call. And I thought, oh my goodness.
What does that offer you beyond what you were experiencing? To know that there is something beyond you
I
that is loving you or supporting you or
Yeah,
supporting, the message is this, right? Something beyond you is loving and supporting all of
yep,
you.
yep.
How does that how does that change your life and view in the way?
I think it's twofold. The first one was when I was doing my clinical work in the hospital for chaplaincy, and after my third year, my supervisor evaluated me, and he said, "Tell me about this coolness that you have." He said, "I've heard it from the nurses, from staff. You can walk into ICU, you can walk into a trauma situation in the ER, and people say you bring this sense of calm to them." And I said, "Yeah, I think so, because as out of control as the situation is, it's still in control. We've still got this. We've still got this." And then I think, that process allows me to say, "Look, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be present." And when I trained other chaplains and stuff, I said, sometimes you just go in a patient's room and you just sit there. You don't have words to say. There's nothing you can say. Just be a present. And it allows us, I think, to say, look, we don't need to be perfect. We can make mistakes. God's bigger than all of this. And I constantly say to this day, nothing has destroyed faith as has religion, you know.
Oh, I
And
totally agree with you on
yeah, yeah. Trying to follow these dogmas and, well, you can't go to heaven until you're baptized. And oh, really? And in order to be able to baptize, you've got to do schooling for 4 years. And I'm thinking, now wait, John was just in a river dunking people. Yeah,
Well,
you know.
yeah, I got to share with this with you. I was born in a country which is an Islamic country. I went to a
Okay.
French Catholic school, so then
Mhm.
I was also raised by nuns who. So you have the group that claims that Islam is a peaceful religion, and then we had all the wars and all that.
Yes.
And then I had, I'm going to Catholic school, which in Iran, I'm going to Catholic school. It's called Gendarme, which we've got all the Catholic nuns, which they beat the crap out of us when we're not doing something right. And, then they're preaching, Jesus love. And you're standing there, you're like, okay, hypocrisy, hypocrisy, hypocrisy. I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, no. So then I started, reading the Bible and the Quran, and then I went and learned all the religions, and I'm like, hypocrisy, 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 hypocrisy.
Yep.
And at one point, I'm like, no, we're done. We're not doing this. I'm going to create my own rules. We're not doing
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
So fast forward all of this as I'm, older, about 5 years ago or so. One of my clients actually, she went through this experience with ayahuasca. I've never had taken drugs. I've never, it's just been, and I'm watching her, like things that I had done with the 2 years of psychotherapy were amazing, but okay, I'm a good therapist. She's a great client. But then everything that we had worked on after this experience, it had like been just part of her. Like it was amazing.
Oh,
And I looked at her, and then she gave me like this person, the shaman, in another country that I could go to. So all of
uh-huh.
this, the reason I'm saying is this was the first time I've ever experienced, ayahuasca. So what do I do as I'm sitting there into my trip, and I'm like, okay, God, if you're real, this is the time you got to show it to me. And I'm saying it with this attitude, uh, someone who's entitled.
Yeah.
You've played around with this thing, and all of your people have played around with all of these different ones, all these, years. So stop the hypocrisy. If there is one of you, or there is you, if there is a you, I want to see you. So this bright light, and I'm closing my eyes were closed. This bright light shows up. And then I'm like, okay, somebody just turned on the light. So I kind of like wink going like this. It's like jet black in the room. Nobody's talking. It's jet black. You can't see anything. And then I close my eyes again. It's this golden light. And I'm like, yeah. How come you're a golden light? Because I'm a golden light, because I'm a light. And then, this dialogue, which from like a rebellious child part of me, like this teenager that I'm just going to poke at you with everything that you've,
Yeah.
and I'm going to just poke at you. And this dialogue was one of the most profound dialogue that I ever had. And then obviously I came out of the trip and I'm like, it's a figment of my imagination. And but it did something profound in that. I cannot say that I believe in religions or whatever it is, but there's a profound experience, I think more than anything of not being alone. I think the experience of me or any human being where, as with the existential anxiety about the loneliness that we have.
Yeah.
I think that's a profound experience more than anything for me, that it's like there's this experience of like anxiety went away. Anxiety of aloneness, anxiety that everything is on my shoulder, and the anxiety of allow it to be. It's all going to be okay. And it has been, And that is my experience of it. I just wanted to share that with you.
That is awesome because part of my story that I didn't tell was after I had that vision, and then a couple months later, I'm still doing the work back and forth, and I'm still not happy. Well, one day I'm going down to work, and you're going down to Virginia Beach, and the only way I could process it was I can do it in about 6 hours. I would drive really fast, but I'd be to DC in 4 hours, but I hit, there must have been a traffic accident. I was delayed 2 hours, then ran into the most horrible rainstorm on 495 around the Beltway of DC. And I mean, even the cars there are going 20, 25 miles an hour. I am smashing my steering wheel. I am saying, God, you have effed up my life so bad. You couldn't make it worse. Oh my gosh. I guarantee, I promise. The driver's side windshield wiper flew off my car. Now I can't see. So I have to lean over and look out the passenger window. I pull under an underpass, get out. I'm thinking I'll at least have a little protection. It was a circular rainstorm. I'm getting soaked. I change the passenger wiper blade to the driver's wiper blade. I start driving, and to this day, I don't know why I said this, but I said, "That's it, Lord. I give up. I'll do whatever you want me to do." Boom, the rain stopped. It stopped. And people say, "Well, you drove through the border of the rain." Oh, that's fine. You think that, but it awoken me. And oh my gosh. And so when you were telling your story, if you are real, show yourself. And I'm just thinking, man, God has got to have he's got a great sense of humor. And we need to realize that. He's not this staunchy old, nasty kid with a magnifying glass trying to make our lives horrible. But it's all for a reason. I have no idea what it is, but it is. So,
So, Dr. Howard Woodruff, if there's anything we haven't shared yet that you really want people to know about reclaimed living, please share.
oh my goodness. Do we have another hour? Let's no. I think the biggest thing is just like you. I mean, we have never met each other, but boy, just after conversation, it's we just we need to drop the false personas. We need to be able to say, "Hey, I'm struggling right now. Can you help me?" And there's no, there's no weakness in that. Being able to say, I need some support right now is probably the strongest thing we can do. And so I encourage people, who are watching, if they're struggling, call me, call somebody. But the worst thing that can happen is, don't ever try to prematurely end your life. I believe that everybody is a blessing from God. They are, deserving of respect. I don't care what lifestyle they're in, what they're doing, any of that stuff. God's gonna take, he'll settle up.
Okay, you just opened up a whole different conversation that
Oh,
we don't have a lot of time, but I really
okay.
just open because there's a lot of not only conversations, but the law's changed. And I sit with many people who, as they sit with their family members who are going through, the process of transitioning,
Yeah.
they're making a pact with themselves that, when I'm ready, I don't want to be in that situation where I'm going to be a burden on someone. I don't want to be, in an institution, and just kind of like, being a zombie laying there until whatever. And I will choose to end my life because it's ending anyway. And my life is no longer practical or useful, or I don't have my faculty. I don't have my independency, agency.
Yeah.
So there's this movement around, obviously in the US, some more, some states more, and some in European countries, that there is this openness in completing by choice when you think your life is completing. So based on what you just said, I just wanted to know your view on that.
Yeah. I personally, I would never prematurely end my life, no matter what I was going through. However, if I'm in a situation where I have enormous pain, I'm going to take pain medication, and I'm going to expect my loved ones to give me all the pain medication that I want, even if it means it may stop my breathing. That's okay. I think that is such a personal choice. But the other thing that I truly believe is that we're put here for a purpose, and the purpose isn't to gratiate ourselves, but to help others. And I think of the millions of people who have died from cancer treatments, and they have showed us the way that it didn't work. So we're honing in on the way that it will work. So even though they succumb to cancer, it's not like cancer beat them. We found one more step. I love the story of Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb. Some 2,000 ways that he was trying it, and his partner said, Edison, you failed 2,000 times. Why don't you stop? And he said, nope, I found 2,000 ways it won't work. And I'm thinking that's the mindset we all have to have. And so, I mean, and I am a survivor of an uncompleted suicide attempt. I'm 17 years old, had a fight with my then girlfriend, and just thought, I'm going to show you. Had my dad's gun. He was a police officer at the time. And to this day, I'm telling you, I put 6 bullets in that chamber, went over in my bedroom. I had a Down syndrome brother at the time. He was in the bed watching me, and I pulled the trigger, and it just clicked. And it's like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? And the expression on my brother's face was almost to the point where, him saying, look at my life and you want to end yours, and so all of these events just help to filter in and help, it literally is like our life is a puzzle, and each one of these events is a puzzle piece that gets put in. I have a scar over my my left eye, and I purposely shave my eyebrow so it's there because I want to see it, because it reminds me. I was 6 years old running out to give my mother a kiss because she forgot to kiss me before she went to a meeting. I tripped and I put my head right through the storm window, sliced my face from here to here, went around my eye, didn't affect my eye, and down, and my nose was, sorry, I don't mean to be graphic, but what I do remember is just seeing all this red. And I remember my mom cuddling me as my father drove to the hospital, and her picking out pieces of glass, and I can hear them dropping on the dashboard as she's pulling them out of my face. And it's like, I love that because I remember the love that was shown to me during that event. So yeah.
How can people find you? And I know you're in a process of writing books. So
yes. They go on to the website www.reclaimed-living.org. And they can find more information and phone number and schedule a meeting with me. I meet with people, free of charge, and if they want to do more work, then we talk about fee structures and those things. But for me, it's not about the money. Like it isn't for you, I know, but
yeah, there's a lot more businesses that create like a lot more money than what we do.
Right.
If it was about money, we would have been there. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and what an honor and a blessing to meet you. Thank you very much.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Fujan Zain is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.